it happens that the physical body has energies, intelligences in it responsible for the healing process, right? Sometimes I call them Davic energies, these forms of intelligence that heal, that knit bones back together and that reduce inflammation and so forth. However, there's an overarching intelligence for all that Davic energy. And the word that I use to describe it is body elemental. So we can think of it as like kind of a big Davic form that sits over top of all the little worker bees that are inside the body healing. And the body elemental also has a cord of light. But the body elemental is a very, very subtle aspect of our physiologies. So our bodies have a cord of light, and most people's cords of light are about that big. That's my perception. Of course, there are always variations, and some people flute out, and some are truncated, and it's all different. But the body elemental has a cord of light. It's like a large form around us that's big. It's like a shaft. It's like a shaft of light. It's like a sacred space in which our bodies reside. And when the causal body, when the causal field produces a resonation of, in this case, compassion and wisdom, the instrument, the resonating space is this shaft of light. It is this great cord. It's like a great cosmic cord, because the body elemental, that level of our physiology and that level of our body's intelligence is much older, and it's much longer lasting. It's closer to eternity than the physical fleshy body. The body elemental has its own flow of evolution. And it's really very, very integrated with the physical body. So when compassion and wisdom are resonating in the shaft, which is this giant cord that's big like this, like of my body, right? Like this. It's like a big kind of around my body. Then this actually promotes a healing for the body elemental. And what I'm seeing for everybody, all of us in our group, and many other people who aren't here in real time with us tonight, is that the dedication to the spiritual path and the time spent expanding consciousness and refining perception upgrades the physiology in such a way that the original body elementals that we were born with are not necessarily appropriate for our condition now. The body elemental also needs a sort of upgrade, a support and an upgrade. And so this work that's happening right now of the causal body producing this flow of compassion and wisdom, which then is going in and it's integrating mostly in the heart center area, is allowing for an increased ability to identify the compassion and the wisdom that's in any symptom or any difficult situation, number one, so that every time difficulties are arising or anytime you feel pain, that what you're primarily focusing on is the compassion and wisdom that's behind that experience, but it's also healing the body elemental. It's upgrading the body elemental. And the reason this is so important is that any kind of illness or any kind of suffering that goes on in the physiology, it's essentially up to the body elemental to fix it. So we need to have like a nice relationship with our body elemental. It's very important. Generally, because that part of the consciousness is responsible for repairing and rejuvenating the body, the general relationship that we as individuals have with the body elemental is to be kind of demanding. That's most people. They're like, well, I can I can do this thing, I can do this sort of somewhat abusive thing to myself, and then I'm just going to have to get over it, you know. I'll just get over it. I'm tough, you know. My father used to have a saying that he had a cast iron stomach. So he would eat things, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. He's like, oh yeah, it doesn't bother me at all. I have a cast iron stomach. Anyway, he's not with us anymore. So yeah, so that kind of attitude, it's a little bit like the attitude that people have when they go to doctors, right? Like, there's something wrong with me, so I'm just going to let the authority take care of it. The thing is, the relationship with the body elemental has to be a two-way relationship. We have to take care of our body elementals too. And the body elemental really needs needs to be in touch. We need to be in touch the being, then the physiology, need to have a very copacetic relationship with that aspect of the physiology, the field of consciousness, which is responsible for all the healing, and not in a demanding way, but in a very, very reverent, humble, and sweet way. And I think one of the reasons that the body elemental ends up in that position to us as humans is because by its nature, it is so humble. It is so reverent. It is such a servant, which will always do whatever the physiology needs at any time. So people just get used to it. It's like a little bit like being enabled. People just get used to, you know, doing whatever themselves. I've got earrings on, they're pinching my ears, you know, but I'm like, well, you know, my ears just have to buck up. They just have to get along with that because we still have a few more minutes to go. So it is what it is. It looks good, you know. Anyway, it goes with the necklace. Anyway, but you get the idea. You get the idea that we have to touch on that. So in that spot, what we can do is bring compassion and wisdom, right? And what the compassion and wisdom do is they support an integrated flow of healing energies to the areas that require that. And I know for some people, those areas are not just physical, but they're also like mental and emotional, and there's old stuff with ancestors and so forth. But I'm just feeling that opening, the integration of the relationship, and the acceptance and love. Looks like what's happening is the superconscious, which is the part of the physiology responsible for self-love, self-acknowledgement, self-protection, and so forth. That part of the being is acting like a liaison between the physical body and the body elemental, so that it can spread out its influence and support in both directions at the same time. That means anytime the body elemental moves forward to support you and to activate the healing energies of the physiology, it also receives healing. This has not been the case previously. This has not been the case. It's been more of an exploitative relationship, but this is not the case anymore. The exploitation is leaving because the superconscious, and that's just, it's a random name. I never felt that it was the best name for that part of the consciousness, but it will do for now. But the part that's responsible for self-love, self-protection, etc., that it's taking over the junction or the relationship between the physiology and the body elemental, in order to naturally, the byproduct of that is the elimination of exploitative energies, the elimination of beliefs which do not serve the healing process. Looks like cords are being also dredged off the body. There are cords that are starting to disassemble from those knots of karma right now. And I'm seeing for a lot of people, it seems like it's also up and down the spine. Lots of cords of karma are being released off the spine. Very good nervous systems, skeletal systems, sometimes the reason we get sick is just because some area of the body needs extra attention. It's crying for attention. And by going there, what we do is we activate divinity in that spot.